time to go deep dive.
Frack, yeah.
Deep dive.
Glowy spine dive.
You can say, oh yeah, this week, buddy. You won't have to drink.
Again?
My tummy, I was making fun of you guys eating.
My tummy.
You guys.
Did you just say my tummy?
My rumbly tumbly.
My
tummy tum tum. I remember when I was a teenager, I was at a store somewhere with my parents or something, and then there was a kid who was talking to his mother. He's this blonde kid. He looked to be like a year older. He's probably 16 years old. And the other at a grocery store, and he's begging his mom to buy him like the cereal or something. And I'm like, get a hold of your damn self.
Wait, what kind of cereal was it though? What kind of cereal? Are we talking Lucky Charms here?
I don't remember. But
are we talking like Honey Nut Cheerios?
Who knows why kids go crazy for the taste of Cinnamon Toast Crunch?
Cocoa Puffs.
But the point is, the following thing came out of this kid's mouth. He jumped in the air and slammed his feet down. This kid's like 16, from what I could tell. Slams feet down and he goes, but Mom, they're yummy in my tummy. Completely non-ironically.
Did you punch him in the nads?
I wanted to. I wanted to go and just like you don't deserve these, like.
And then open the box and just start eating them over his crumpled body.
Yeah.
Like dripping crumbs all over him.
Dang. That's what you get. That's hardcore.
So yummy in my tummy.
I was not exactly the picture of macho at any age. But I'm sitting there going, dude, you're making us all look bad. You need to cut this out right now.
Well, I hope you feel bad because he actually had that disease that makes him grow fast.
Oh, he was
age fast.
He was only 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Oh, he was aging backwards.
Oh, it was like Pat Morita in that one movie.
Something. I don't know.
Wasn't he been like 80
terrible.
then?
No, wait, it was
Terrible.
Ralph Macchio.
What's
not Pat
happening?
Morita. What?
I don't know.
I don't know. Karate Kid's awesome.
Star Wars.
He had the Webster
Boy,
disease.
this week for
I was making fun of you guys before we started recording.
He never actually got to his comment.
Both came down with like snacky snacks. And the funny thing is we all came down, get ready to record the episode. Garrick's waiting patiently. You got up and
just
left.
watching Daredevil.
Came back with, or you had snacks, got up and left and came back with more snacks. And then Mike got up and left and then came back with snacks. We're all sitting recording. I'm like, oh, make sure you guys all have something to eat. My stomach is growling so loud, I'm afraid the mic's going to pick it up.
You should have ate some Pringles.
Serves you right.
I promise not to pick up your tummy.
If we were going to start me drinking right now, it would not be long before I would just be in a puddle of my own like bile.
Would you like me to run and get
Challenge
you some Taco
accepted.
Bell?
Hell no. I'd rather go to sleep hungry. I would rather go to sleep because I've passed out from malnutrition than eat Taco Bell. Right.
Yeah, more for me.
Wow.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'll have some.
Bold
Mike, what's going on?
statement.
Well, boys, this week for discussion, we are going to talk a little bit about. Everybody knows, most people know that at least me, Corey, and Garrett go way back on the OG novel.
Yeah, well, screw you too.
Well, buddy.
Wow, dude.
There's 3 of us.
Come
There's 3 of
on.
us.
I
Screw
want to
all 3 of
include
us.
you in this, but you didn't read all the old shit.
I
man.
read them all.
That hurts
You
my
did?
feelings.
All right, then all 4 of us, baby.
I did not. I did not. Did no such thing.
Howie's of 2 minds on the things. One of them's truthful.
He did not.
Howie's
not
experience
read them.
of old was just the movies. He loved the movies, baby.
Yep.
But the rest of us kind of deep dived into the OG novels.
That's saying we're nerds.
That is saying we're nerds.
Uh-huh.
And actually, I was a
hipster
latecomer
nerds.
to some of this because I actually didn't start reading the novels. Geez, what year was it, man? Probably 02-ish. So there was a good,
1902.
there was a good smattering of novels.
You're a
Mike
noob.
was trying to figure out what he was going to do with all his retirement time. And rather than just sit around and fester on the back porch of his grandchildren's plantation, were they still called plantations back then?
I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. Anyway, I just thought it'd be fun to kind of go around the room and maybe give the audience our recommendation, maybe our favorite book, like the OG book. If you're interested in checking out
Any
some of the
book.
legends.
You ain't got to limit it. You ain't got to limit it.
No limit. If you want to do the new,
There's some books you shouldn't
the new
read.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are some books you shouldn't read. Yeah, maybe we should give one that we recommend and one that we say completely avoid at all costs.
I can think of 2 or 3 that you need to completely avoid at all costs. So we
Yeah.
should be able to knock that out.
I can
I'll
think of a
start-
whole multi-year long series you could avoid.
Yeah, but it's hard to avoid all of it. And there's a couple of shining stars buried in that hot
Yes,
mess.
there are.
That's true.
So, but Anyway, so let's just hop around the room and Corey, what was?
I was gonna say, don't save me for last. Everybody saves me for last, and then there's no end to my droning. So you gotta
not today.
Crack me out first and get me over.
Give me your avoidance novel.
I gotta do avoidance first.
Yeah, do
I feel
it.
like I got a lot more to say about that than I do about. No, I'm gonna give you my favorite one first.
All right, do it.
I Jedi.
Oh,
Yeah.
dang it.
I Jedi.
Why don't you give us a quick synopsis
Oh, geez.
and where it falls in kind of the timeline?
I Jedi is a novel. I'm just off the cuff. I Jedi is a novel written by Michael A. Stackpole that is set in Star Wars Galaxy. It was first Star Wars novel written first person perspective of a character never seen in the movies. Novel takes place around. This is all just off the cuff. Okay, it takes place around the same time as Jedi Academy trilogy. And
so this for the lay person, this is be post Return of the Jedi. Luke is reestablishing the Jedi Academy.
I think
right?
we're about 7 years post Jedi because
Right.
let's see, Zahn trilogy was 4 years. Not ABY, but 4 years after the trilogy, right? And that's when the twins are born, and the
about
twins
right,
are
yeah.
like toddler wielding lightsaber wielding toddlers.
right.
Toddler wielding lightsabers would be wicked though. In Jedi Academy, so I would say about 7 years after the movies.
Feels right, yeah.
I don't know the exact ABY. I'm not looking at a timeline.
It's all right.
The Wikipedia page.
11?
I mean, my stream of consciousness doesn't have
It's
that.
11 ABY.
Is it 11? Yeah. So right about that's
Shoot,
about right.
I got my essential chronology book, man. The OG.
Oh yeah,
Essential
right back here.
Chronologies.
Right back here, bro.
I love that. Baby.
That's still. Oh man, there's some good stuff in there.
Yeah, there is.
And I got a couple. And they had the expanded one that they did. But anyhow, I Jedi is about Corran Horn, who was a member of Rogue Squadron, who. You know, it kind of goes into his background a little more too, like his family background, which was part of like the Corellian Security Force, which was like the homegrown kind of pseudo military around Corellia. And he's force sensitive, but he's always ignored it. And Luke said, "Hey, come be a Jedi," and he's like, "No, screw off. I'm a pilot. I'm gonna be a pilot. I'm gonna be a pilot. The best pilot
in the galaxy."
But yeah, so he's an X-wing pilot, stuff like
All
that.
my life.
But then his wife gets kidnapped. And so his wife, Mirax, daughter of Booster Tarek, big time. I wouldn't call Booster a smuggler. What is Booster? An entrepreneur, I guess.
He's a shady
That's a good way to put it.
And Mirax is kind of like
with a
Mirax
Star
is-
Destroyer.
Yeah, owns a Star Destroyer. Partially.
It's basically a mall.
It's a
right?
giant mall casino. Yeah.
Yeah, with
More or less.
some guns on it.
Either way, Mirax is actually like an intelligence operative, I believe. But she gets kidnapped, and Corran knows it through the Force and tries to make contact, and he can't. And everybody's like, well, how do you know anything's wrong? It's a big galaxy. And he's like, I Force sensed it. And they're like, that's lame. And he's like, I know, shut up. But then he's like, all right. Like he tries to find out what happened, and there's nothing, and she is just gone. So he's like, there's nothing I can do. So he goes to the Jedi Academy and he joins up. So you actually get parts of the Jedi Academy trilogy, like scenes from that,
Right.
redone with Corran there and from his perspective. Because yes, it's all in first person,
Right.
which was a little jarring at first. I actually put it down the first time I tried to read it, and I picked it
Yeah.
up months later and then just devoured it.
Yeah.
But basically, you get his going from like having latent force ability and denying it to going through the training and becoming a full-fledged Jedi.
I always loved Corran's abilities in the Force too because they
Yes.
were atypical.
Yes,
most
yeah.
Jedi have the ability to move objects and
Yeah.
and they're great sword fighters and all that stuff. And Corran's abilities were a little more muted.
Well, he literally had no ability for telekinesis
He has
whatsoever.
none. Yeah,
It's
Unless
like a
certain
handicap.
conditions, under certain conditions, he did.
and there's that great scene, right?
Yeah,
You
with
wanna
the
just-
with the boulder.
yes.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
and
That's one of my favorites. All
basically, it's on the academy, and Luke is leading this first cadre of students, and they're all like young adults. It's not baby children or Padawans or anything like that, but they're all sitting around and in a cave or whatever. And Luke is trying to get them. He's doing the size matters not lesson, trying to get them to lift the boulder. And, I think maybe a couple of them it's been a long time. I think a couple of them get it to wobble and stuff, but nobody can get it to move. And then it gets to Corran, and the dude who can't move jack
And
squat.
he knows that Corran can't move it.
He
so
knows
he's really
that Corran,
pushing.
yeah. So Luke's really being a butt. Like the boulder just just goes right up in the air, and all the students are leaning back like, what? Because they're all sitting around like Indian style, or sorry, crisscross applesauce, and and they're all freaking out, and blah blah blah. And Luke is like, whoa, I didn't really expect. And then they realize, wait a minute.
Something's not right.
Something's not right. Boulder never moved. It's just sitting there. And Corran just suddenly unlocked the ability to plant the image into everybody's head. Like he was trying so hard to make the boulder move that he convinced everybody and himself that he'd moved it.
He moved it, right.
And it had never moved. And that was such a clever way to show the diversity in Jedi powers, which we kind of lost that when we got to the prequels and stuff of that.
Because they're very ubiquitous.
Well, what the story became is, oh, you're good at plants. We're going to ship you off to Jedi plant land. Right. Like they tried to do with Obi-Wan. Right. You know what I mean? Oh, you're not so good at fighting. We're going to send you off to non-fighting. We're not even going to call you a Jedi. You're second class. We're just going to call you a squib. You know, like it was that kind of stuff where it's like, oh, if you don't fit the exact mold of a Jedi,
right,
you're not going to be part of the major prequel stories. Although some of the authors got into, you know, the ones who had like better skills with like medicine and stuff like that. Sure. But in the OG books, almost every Jedi had a specific set of skills.
Yeah.
Where like, you know, they were always geared toward the thing that they, for some reason, could do exceptionally well.
Yes.
And yeah, for Corran, it was based on literally he couldn't do one thing, and it resulted in this explosive ability of another thing, which I think related back to his bloodline, because he, as the book unfolds, you find out his grandfather and all stuff. So anyway, it's a great book. You see him go through that, and then he turns the corner. He's like, all right, it's time to go freaking find out where my wife is and start kicking butt. And I love the character. I love Corran's. I love his temperament.
One of my favorite.
Yeah, he's quick. He's a hothead, but he's also a very intelligent, like strategic thinker. But you know, he's got a little bit of that Han Solo in him where it's like, oh crap, stuff's falling apart, kick the door in. You know what I mean? It's like, there went the plan. Plan B is rush forward. And he's got a little bit of a Spider-Man-y sarcasm to him, but he's also got a serious streak. I love that character.
Yeah, he started off as you said he started off as a security officer, right? You said
yeah.
It's like a cop. Yeah.
Space cop.
Space cop.
And a pilot for the space cops.
I think iJedi and the Jedi Academy trilogy are essential reading if you're interested in
parts of the Jedi Academy trilogy. As much as I love that series, are hard.
They were, but I still feel like if you want to dive into Legends and really, if you're interested in that and you haven't done it, to me those books are an essential part of filling in those gaps.
Yeah, you want to see a Jedi Master like whipping TIE fighters out of the air, or like a bunch of students like crushing AT-ATs, ATSTs. Just with the Force. It's pretty, because that was the first time it's like, all right, here's a bunch of Jedi, and this is what happens when a bunch of Jedi are fighting together. We didn't have that.
Right.
Didn't exist. So they went whole hog with it during that sort of Imperial attack on Yavin 4.
That dovetails well into the X-Wing series as well, because Corran Horn's a major character in that as well.
Yes.
Because Stackpole wrote a bunch of Stackpole and Alston wrote that series together, and those are really good too.
Yeah, there again, I think that X-Wing series, at least there's two different X-Wing series. There's Rogue Squadron.
You can almost say there's three.
And then you have Wraith Squadron.
But then you go back to Rogue Squadron ones that take place after the Wraith Squadron.
Right, right. So Aaron Alston's books, maybe not as essential, but they're still.
They're a little goofier.
They're goofy. They're fun. But I feel
if you're a completionist, Alston lays some seeds that he harvests way later. And there's a payoff.
But in terms of essential for the Legends and how the universe plays out after post Return of the Jedi, those that first half of that X-Wing series is essential because it essentially sets up the retaking of Coruscant. I mean, that's the overarching story, which I loved. I mean, that's
we'll get to yours. I got to do my crap book now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do your crap book.
I'm wrestling between. I mean, there's three that I find to be essential garbage, but I hate to do it. I hate to do it because I feel a lot a lot snittier against Barbara Hamley, but I'm calling Vonda out. Crystal Star is a trash novel.
It's horrible.
Okay. I always get some of these confused. So what was the main premise in that book?
Dude, I don't know.
Is that the one where they're wandering?
Well,
the
it's one of 82 books where the twins get kidnapped. You know, so the twins have been kidnapped again. You think we'd put a tracker on these children by now? You know, nanny cam something, but. And then there's like some kid and they're trying to, I believe they were trying to get force potential to unlock. They were trying to force children to become force sensitive.
Is this the one where we where we first hear about the paddles, the force paddles?
No, force paddle. Oh no, that was the Jedi Academy. That was Jedi Academy.
Jedi Academy? You're right.
Not to be confused with the paddle beamers, which was actually the Truce
Bakura, yeah.
So paddle beamers were the Siruvi blasters. They were like tennis rackets that they shot at people.
Right. Okay.
And but the force paddles were something Luke discovered.
They measure midichlorian counts.
Where did he? Yeah, more or less before midichlorians even existed. But was that like technology he had found in Mount Tantus or something? I don't remember. They
found it like the ruins of the temple or something.
Yeah, that's how I remember it. Yeah.
But anyhow, I still can't. I mean, Star by Star, Crystal Star could have been a great novel, and I still would hate it for Waru. The force-ish, sensitive-ish, master-ish,
spongy thing,
amorphous floating blob from another dimension. Yeah. Yep, I said it, from another dimension. Essentially, he was Melbar. You know, from Futurama.
Yes,
he had like a bunch of cult that worshipped him and stuff. And Luke's like, I want to figure out what this is. He's literally from another dimension.
Yes.
Oh my gosh! But the book was actually terrible all in all, so I don't have to feel bad about hating Waru. That's a horrible book. And you know what? I've never read anything else that Vonda wrote, but I'm curious because I'm wondering if she's actually a pretty good author that just wasn't a good fit for Star Wars. I have no idea.
Be. Yeah.
But yeah,
there have been sci-fi.
Well, it's kind of like R.A. Salvatore.
Right.
If I judged him solely on his first the kickoff to the Yuuzhan Vongs, I would be like, that guy's the worst author ever.
Prime, yeah.
But then I've read his other works, including Episode 2, right?
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, no, he's good. What happened?
Right.
Who did that to him? Who touched him where? Who hurt that man? Anyway.
I always wondered if that whole kickoff and the idea of the Yuuzhan Vong and all that stuff was his idea.
It can't have been, right? No, it wasn't. They'd actually decided they needed to do a unified.
Right, and it was, I mean, they had at that time decided to sit down authors.
We're going to have all the authors all contribute to a story rather than having, now these aliens hate us. Right. Now these aliens hate us. Here comes the Empire again. Don't worry. It's this admiral with his fleet that he stole.
Yeah.
Right.
The warlords. I love how they even came up with a shorthanded to talk about all those bad random Imperial dudes who don't get along that are just showing up and attacking people. Warlords.
It's Warlord Zinj this time.
That's all right.
Yep, it's Zinj now.
Now it's Dala.
So that's me. That's me. I'm out.
Garrick.
Oh, I'm up. Well,
You're up, baby.
Corey stole mine because Jedi is the best book ever written.
God, it's good.
So because Corey stole mine, I'm going to cheat.
All right.
I'm going to say the Star Wars Republic Commando series.
Really?
By Karen Travis.
Yep. Karen, Mother Truckin' Travis.
One of the greatest Star Wars authors of all time.
All time.
And one of my favorite Twitter people.
So I didn't actually read these until way after they came out.
Oh, yeah.
Because they were based on a video game, the Republic Commando video game for the Xbox 360, I believe.
Yes, they were.
And she's actually written quite a bit of companion material for games and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so it took me a while to get into these, but once I did, I realized the mythos of the Mandalorians and how they tie into the clones, and then the clones being thought of as individuals, all synergized in these novels. This is Genesis. This is a genesis of that. Like what we see in the Clone Wars, where we see that each clone is they're all the same, but they all have different personalities. They're all basically different. I think it started in this series or in the video game, I suppose. But they explore the mythos of that. They go into like the Jedi relationship to the clones. Some of the it goes all the way up to even Order 66 and beyond. And some of the clones have falling out after Order 66 because they realize, they didn't have back then they didn't retcon the inhibitor chip into the clones. So some of the clones could think for themselves and like, oh, this isn't right. Let's not do this anymore. So, it's very interesting. Karen Traviss basically created a Mando dialect. And and at the end of some of the books, it'll have a bunch of Mando words in the translations. So it's great how she tackles it because the clones are trained by Mandalorian warriors, not just Jango, but there's other ones as well. So in doing that, the Mandalorian, they're trying to learn the Mandalorian culture as they go along. And so they end up picking up these phrases along with you as you're learning it with them. So you kind of like want to somehow work them into your vocabulary as well while you're talking to people, and then they'll have no idea what you're saying.
She's so good.
There are certain authors in the old legends that are like go-to authors that really set the overall stage.
Yeah.
You get your Stackpole and guys like Zahn. And you have to put Karen Traviss at the top up there. She was later on. She came later.
Yeah, she came later, about halfway through.
Right.
Really.
So, but her contributions are so, and we,
although
I know we've
retcon blasted by George himself. Blasted out of the before the reset happened.
Yeah.
But if you really have interest in the legends, you have to read Karen. I mean, just any of her novels. Probably would recommend all of them.
The problem is with the ones with the Legacy of the Force ones, you have, because that's when her, Alston, and was it Denning? Or was it Luceno? It was Denning. They were doing every third. Like they wrote 9. Each of them wrote 3 books of a 9-part series. Mm-hmm. And so it was like reading a terrible book, a almost as terrible book, and then an amazing book, and then a terrible book, and then an almost as terrible book.
But the amount of thought that she put into Mando culture, and I mean creating it from scratch, and so perfectly.
Yeah. It was
almost one of the best crafted things in Star Wars.
It was almost Tolkien in execution. I mean, she worked out their language, their culture, everything. And those the books in the the ones with she's right, the Bloodlines or Legacy of the Force or whatever. These books tied into those. Like a lot of these characters were brought back in that one. And there's a lot of little things you might not have got reading Bloodlines or
prior to her contributions, the Mando culture itself was very disjointed because all you had was Boba Fett. And remember,
Jango.
Boba Fett even had different names.
Jaster Morale.
And there was one author would do this, another would do that, and whatnot. And she came in and
the one thing that we knew is that they were scattered. And they'd been scattered for a long time because of the Old Republic, the Mandalorian.
So the general overall mythos is that there was a world called Mandalore at one time. Yeah. And that world became war ravaged and it was no longer inhabitable or was destroyed. Mm-hmm. And that the entire culture, basically uplifted and moved to other planets. Yeah. To which they would, give the name Mandalore, I mean, basically the culture and the mythos and everything.
They were kind of like, I would say they were most closely relatable to like a mixture between like Native Americans, and in their displacement, like a more of a war, focused tribe of Native Americans, and like Scottish
like the Palestinians.
Reavers. You know what I mean?
Or even the Jews. I mean, because along the way too, they would pick up other people, like people that weren't blood Mandos.
Yeah, that's
could
true.
Become assimilated
like
into
Vikings,
the culture,
actually, in that way too.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, just
it's really good.
Makes me mad because
it was an agriculture.
It's not something
agriculture. It was funny because their whole economy was based on agriculture.
It was farming. They're farmers
until they got called up to war,
and then they all went to war. And
like everybody, the kids, everybody were part of the war effort.
Yeah. And so it was, they were actually, they wanted to be peaceful. They wanted to work the field and drink and sing at night.
Never turned away a request or the call.
Yeah.
You know,
but they were all also about like helping your neighbors. Like everybody wasn't Boba Fett. They weren't all like, hey, we don't trust your house because our house is this way. What we have now.
And I loved her handling of Boba Fett as well, because at one point in her mythos, Boba Fett was called to become Mandalore. Mandalore is the title of the leader of
the
Mandalorians, and it was his call, it was his turn, but he almost rejected it.
He flat out didn't want it
because his bounty hunter lifestyle was not the lifestyle of
I'm not here. I can't lead people. I've always worked by myself. I'm not fit to lead. And they're like, but you are the one.
This is your responsibility.
You're the one person that people will rally behind. You know, that reluctant forced leadership thing with Jaina Solo there for some reason, but because that's the overarching story of those 9 books required it. But even then, that ended up being awesome.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, it sucks because in those books, there were good books and bad books,
right?
But that was the first thing that George Lucas literally just in a snap moment just hiked down his dungarees and took a dump right on some of the most wonderful work that anyone had ever done for his property.
And those books, it has a Mando culture, but it also has, it has something for everybody. It has like good fight scenes and battles, like has romance, has humor, they had everything. And she's such a good author, and it sucks that she'll probably never come back again, forever.
I'd imagine she's probably pretty spurned, even if they wanted her to come back.
We actually, Corey, out of all of us, this new Mandalorian series, he's jokes constantly about. Have you called Karen?
Have they called Karen yet?
Or are they?
Well, what I'm happy about is that they've called Filoni.
True,
because I don't believe, despite the fact, is Clone Wars is where we saw the execution of all the great Mando stuff getting thrown out the window.
Right.
But I don't blame Filoni and the only reason why I don't hold that against Filoni is because when I asked Pablo outright,
it was
who made that decision. His words, that was all George.
Yeah,
he made the decision. Like I get the feeling that almost everybody there was like, wait.
Hey,
really? Are you sure?
There's some good stuff here.
Yeah. And so my hope is that Filoni sans George doesn't mind pulling back in that direction. I mean, I'm not saying we're going to get Mando. He's a lone Mandalorian out in the outer rim for whatever, but anyway. Anyway, what's your stinker, Garrick?
My stinker is Planet of Twilight by Barbara Hambly.
Yep. Oh, you went for the second one.
Yeah, because it's so bad, I never finished it, so I have no idea what it's about.
You get 15 pages into that book, and it's so clearly an FU to Kevin J. Anderson.
Yeah.
Who also wrote the Jedi Academy trilogy, but I don't want to go too deep into her previous novel, but she'd written a previous novel that was so bad and left so many open-ended things that literally I don't think an author could have written anything to come after it without going back and closing these doors. So Kevin J. Anderson wrote Darksaber and literally slammed the door shut.
He's like, no,
on this open-ended stuff.
I got this. And she's like, no.
Yeah. Well, she came back way later, 10 years later, and said, here's my sequel.
Yeah.
And everybody went, meh.
I think those 3 are informally called the Callista trilogy because they all had either, I guess, a disembodied or bodied version of Luke Skywalker's old girlfriend.
Okay,
yeah,
so
computer Luke Skywalker's computer girlfriend.
Right. So is the Planet of the Twilight, is that the one that they're on the ship?
No, on the Eye of Palpatine. That's
no. There's one where Luke is caught on a ship, and I think that's where he meets Callista.
Yeah,
that's Children of the
Jedi.
Jedi.
Children of the Jedi.
That's the Eye of Palpatine.
That's the first book in the trilogy.
That's
no, wait, that's Children of the Jedi.
Children of the Jedi.
I was going to say, that's why I'm like, you went to the second one?
Well, the second one,
the first one.
The first one I actually read.
Yeah, it's true. I finished the first one. That's a good point.
I'm trying to remember Callista's thing. She's a disembodied Jedi, right? But she found the Eye of Palpatine or something. She was there. It existed somehow. Remember, the prequels weren't out yet. Right.
And she died, so she just force pushed her consciousness into the computer.
Right. But at some point she inhabits at some point though she inhabits a body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She
No, that
attempts
happens.
to have a relationship with
I
Luke.
believe that either happened it happened at the end of Children of the Jedi.
Right.
And then she goes off. She says, I have to go do my
And I
thing.
think she tries to hook up with Luke for a while, but then eventually one of the authors just has her run away.
Well, I think that's what Kevin J. Anderson did.
Right.
But then she brings her back, and I'm with Garrick. I can't tell you the plot.
Yeah.
I can't tell you the plot of Twilight.
It's probably so stupid. I just blocked it out of my memory.
There's vampires in it.
Yeah.
Well, now wait a minute. I'm back in.
Pick up my essential chronology.
Had vampires in it?
Refresh myself.
I've read
Twilight.
a lot of
You're talking about Twilight, right?
Yeah, Planet
Yeah.
of Shiny Vampires.
Twilight.
Right? Yeah. Well, Mike, we know you're stinker.
Well, and just so you know, I have one.
You do?
I said I wasn't, but I do.
Well,
man.
let's do you because Mike just named his stinker. Let's do you last, and let's let Mike say what his favorite is since he already had to admit that Children of the Jedi was.
I mean,
So there you go. We've covered the three that I knew we'd cover and three terrible ones. I knew that would happen.
okay, so the obvious choices, of course, is on Children, so I'm not going to go there. But for me and my choice, you guys are going to laugh at me when I tell you.
No, I can't
My
wait.
choice, I'm one of those guys that I'm a nostalgia guy. So one of the probably the first book that I read after I decided I was going to read Star Wars books was I looked at all the available stuff out there, and I picked the one that immediately picked up right after Return of the Jedi.
Truce of Bakura,
Truce of
right out of the
Bakura.
gates.
Oh, wow.
Right out of the gates.
If that was the first one I read, it would probably be one of my favorites. But it was like,
Well, that's the first one
fifth
I read, and it wasn't my
Yeah, I mean-
favorite.
And you're right. Maybe it's because I read it first, and that was my only exposure. And I mean, there was enough excitement and adventure in it to keep me engaged.
yeah,
and
Velociraptors with electric,
It was dumb.
electric tennis rackets.
it was dumb.
They put people's consciousness into ships.
Yes, they
How
did.
can you go wrong with that?
All right. So what happens is basically, Return of the Jedi happens. They've blown up the second Death Star. The
Spoiler.
Emperor's dead, and they're literally still on Endor.
Yeah, this is like
when-
2 seconds after the pyre goes out.
Yes, exactly. And then the fleet gets a
Yeah, you
distress-
literally have that scene where Luke's like, "Oh well, I better head back now."
But the fleet gets a distress signal from a nearby planet, and they feel like, okay, we've got to go investigate. So I think Luke ends up going. They send a few people, Luke and probably Han and Leia and all that. And so it's a signal coming from a planet Bakura. And Bakura is it's occupied still by the Empire.
Yep.
So the Empire, even though the Battle of Endor has happened, the Empire hasn't crumbled yet.
Yeah, well, they're at least not aware that they're
Yeah,
going to
right, exactly. So so these guys are basically the first people to start informing the Empire outside of the Battle of Endor that hey, the Emperor's dead.
Yep.
And but the Empire doesn't relieve their grip on Bakura.
There's some friction, and it's really fun to watch that play out.
It was, yes.
Yeah.
Because there's a common enemy, and it is these little velociraptors that are invading Bakura.
Well, some of them are bigger than the other ones. The blue ones are
Yes.
bigger than the red ones, or the red ones are bigger than the
They
blue ones. I don't
They're like
remember.
Allosauruses or something.
They're like something out of like a Tecmo arcade game.
They're basically
From the 80s.
velociraptors that are sentient, and they carry little bags.
Well,
And
because they have smaller arms, so instead of having a blaster
from
that they can
Primal
hold
Rage?
out, it's a paddle that they
goes under their arm. Yeah.
that they can grip in their armpit and go pew pew out of the handle. See, but it's not a blaster; it's a laser beam.
They're straight out of Dino
It's a
Saucers.
straight laser beam. Yeah, I think I fought them in Sunset Riders. I'm not sure.
And actually, there's a love interest for Luke in this too.
Yeah, I was gonna say Luke had another girlfriend that I really wish we'd had.
Luke got
some-
around
some
in the
more of.
old days, man.
Yeah, every lady writer that came along wanted to hook Luke up because they had a crush on him when they were little or something. Like
Right.
every single one of them was like, "All right, I got Luke's perfect woman. I'm going to describe myself with I don't know." But there was just it was kind of like every time Barbara Hemley wrote, if Han and Leia were in a scene together, yep, oh, here we
They were
go.
doing it. Yeah.
They're getting ready to do it. Han could not keep his hands off Leia when Barbara Hemley was writing.
Nah, I could.
Truth.
I wouldn't either.
You knew
though.
there was like, all right. But yeah, what was her name? Captain. I want to know her
fine.
name really bad. You keep talking. I'll look it up. I'll
Okay.
look it up.
All right. So yeah, just the interplay between. So essentially, you know, what it boils down to is that the rebellion and the Empire. Basically, the rebellion has to convince the Empire on Bakura that, hey, we need to hook up. We got to fight this common enemy together, or we're not going. And the Imperial that's in charge of the planet is very reluctant to do that. And but I think at some point he comes to realize, oh, geez, yeah, the Emperor's dead.
We need help.
Yeah, we need the help.
And you're here to give it.
Right. And
Gariel Captison.
Yeah, Gariel. That's it. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And
Kathy Tyers, the author of that book.
And
Kathy Tyers.
She wrote one of my favorite of the Yuuzhan Vong series. I like Kathy Tyers. I like her writing.
Yeah. It seemed like it was a good start for me because it was an easy book to read. It was interesting. Yeah, maybe it was a little out there.
And you didn't have to know anything. See, even if you sit down with the Zahn trilogy, Zahn trilogy is written for the person who's only seen the movies, right?
Sure.
But still, it comes hot and heavy super fast. Like, okay, I don't know what this looks like. I thought I would know what everything looks like. I don't know. Where's the Rhodians? You know?
Right.
But Truce of Bakura, because it's the next day, you're literally being fed everything at pace.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe not essential reading, but it was a fun read for me, and it really got me engaged, and that was my jump off point. So
okay,
yeah,
good. Howie, turn.
My turn.
Howie.
Well, as we had discussed earlier about doing this, and since I haven't really read a whole lot of books,
you keep saying that, but I'm like, you've listened to so many that I've never even read.
Yeah, I've most of the stuff that I've listened to have been within the last few years.
Yeah, but still.
So, but I got to thinking, I was like, you know what? I really, really liked Lords of the Sith.
Yeah,
I've mentioned that a few times, and
this is the Vader Palpatine novel.
Yeah, yes. Written by Paul Kemp.
Mm-hmm.
And are you familiar with his past works? Because he really didn't start until 2010.
I was going to say, in literally zero ways am I familiar with his works.
Coruscant.
Yeah.
The Old Republic, The Third Lesson.
Oh, yeah.
The Old Republic, Deceived.
Oh, Deceived.
And then there's a few more, but I don't know if you've ever read his, but I really enjoyed this book. I haven't listened to the other ones. I've just only listened to Lords of the Sith.
Old Republic Deceived is really good.
But really, the kind of old, I'm not as good as as these guys at picking out all the details, but the overall plot of the thing is Palpatine really wants to. Oh, actually, go back. It takes place 8 years after the Clone Wars, and Palpatine really wants to control Ryloth.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And he wants all the spice.
Spice must flow.
So the kind of overall plot of the book is there's people on Ryloth that want to fight the Empire, and so battle ensues with these one of the main characters is Champ. No, hold on. Cham.
This Hera's daddy, isn't it?
Cham Syndulla.
Yeah.
Ah,
nice.
So there's a nice little tie there. And so the couple things that I really liked, the two main things I really liked about this book was Vader's conflict with himself.
Yeah.
Because he kept having memories of his past life and struggling with becoming a Sith. And then with Palpatine kind of, knowing what was going on and the struggle between the two of them. So that was fun to read and see play out. But then also seeing Vader like he was at the end of Rogue One.
Yeah.
They have
some
badass Vader.
Nice.
Going on. That was, he's force choking people in another starship,
Yeah.
Right.
He's flying a TIE fighter and choking other people out.
Yeah.
Flying other ships. And it's, just stuff like that. That's just really fun to read and or listen to. And I really enjoyed that one. So I would definitely recommend.
Yeah.
I don't think I've read any Paul Kemp. I don't have any familiarity with his work. That's one word, because I've been looking for like what's some stuff that I missed that I don't know that I don't want to read. Like I'm not sure that I've missed on purpose.
Right.
And Paul Kemp is one of the authors. By the way, you said Coruscant. I forgive you for that, because if you look at this quickly, that's what it looks like.
Oh.
Cross current.
Oh,
But this novel, I forgot
totally.
this one even existed, and I wanted to bring it up because
Cross-current.
did you guys remember that there was a novel starring Jaden Core, the main character from the Jedi Academy game?
What? Yeah, cross current.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Cross Current.
And there's
it's
a
about
sequel, I
Jaden Core,
think,
and it's about a ship from back in the hyperspace wars that somehow gets sucked into present day, and it takes place after Legacy of the Force.
Pretty
So this was
cool.
right before they started doing that Fate of the Jedi march.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
So that's another
no
one that I
idea
kind of
that
want to go
existed.
back and read that, because
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I don't know anything about that book at all.
right.
So sorry, I don't mean to hijack,
No.
but thank you for pointing that out to me.
Yeah.
Thank you for correcting my mislook.
Yeah, I totally want to read this now, because that's the thing. I'm like, who wrote a book about Coruscant? What?
Yeah. This is
Other than everybody.
I love
for a
the
while.
like how he was saying. I love the dynamic between Vader and the Emperor in this book, because the Emperor is this. Yeah, they're doing this thing to quell the resistance on Ryloth, but the Emperor's only really there to test Vader and to egg him on and to see how far he'll go and to see if he's really committed to, I guess, the Sith way. Because they go into that, I think, was it the cave of like these weird monster things, and they don't have lightsabers, or did they?
I don't remember.
I think
It's been a while since I've listened to it. So.
Yeah, but it's basically like Force Unleashed with, Vader couldn't handle it, and the Emperor's like, well, cracks his knuckles. Guess I got to step in.
Yeah,
and
that was
just
pretty.
like destroys these creatures, and it's just like, holy cow!
Seeing, I kind of almost forgot about that part, but yeah, seeing the Emperor kind of go to town too was pretty awesome.
Because other than jumping at Mace Windu whilst spinning,
Yeah.
we haven't really seen him much other than lightning bolts.
Yeah, I cannot say enough about this book, and I would definitely recommend picking it up. Now, I want to bring a book up that what did you say, the
Stinker.
the stinker?
Yeah.
Well, it's actually a book I personally really like,
Oh.
but it's not going to be one that is for most people, and that's Tarkin.
Oh, yeah?
You said it was a pretty dry read.
It is an extremely dry read, but I love the content. Just
And that's a
the
Tarkin. That's a Luceno. That's Jimmy the Luch, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
Jimmy the Luch can shake me off pretty quick.
He's done some stuff I like, but you're right.
It was, and of course, it's him writing about Tarkin. So just a dry person in general, coming off, but that guy writing him. So, excuse me. I really enjoyed it because I don't know that I'd say I'm a fan of Tarkin, but I like his character for as much as, he's on screen and stuff. But it's, really interesting and fun to learn more about him. But yeah, that's a tough one for me to recommend to anybody.
Yeah.
I still haven't finished that one.
The first time I tried to read a Jimmy the Luch novel, I don't even remember which one it was at this point, but I remember I was like 5 pages in and he was still describing the way the stars looked in space and nothing had happened yet. I'm like, I'm 5 pages in and we are
dazzlingly dancing.
That's what I would always say. I'm like, I can't stand the stars dance dazzlingly authors. And that was him. He would go just into such detail about something. It's like, dude, I get it. The night was moist. Okay,
well,
move
to
on.
be fair, that's half of Star Wars.
Oh my god!
My first book.
At least he didn't come up with lightsabers weaving baskets, because that was Troy Denning.
My first exposure to Jimmy the Luch was Cloak of Deception, and that was pre. I liked that book.
Yeah, it was good.
It was.
I don't remember Cloak of Deception.
It was pre Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
Oh,
It was an Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon
Qui-Gon
book. Qui-Gon.
Qui-Gon.
Blah 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 blah. Anyway,
wasn't that all about
we got a
Chancellor?
that's almost like a double ding.
Wasn't that all about Chancellor Valorum and stuff?
there you go. And that was all for Petrie, by the way. Yes, it was a Chancellor Valorum kind of his rise to power, and it was a political novel. So that's another one that probably not a lot of people would have dug, but I liked it because at the time I liked the politics behind the Phantom Menace and all that. So
I'm trying to remember what my first Luceno book would have been.
Probably
Jimmy the Looch.
Yuzhen Vong.
Did he start in the Yuzhen Vong? I felt like there was something before that. Maybe not.
Well,
I don't know.
Maybe not. He might have been the Agents of Chaos. Might have been the first one.
Oh, was that the one where Han Solo painted the Falcon black?
Well, let me, Garrick, if you will, let me just off the top of my head give you a synopsis. No, I'm not really going to do that, but I am looking at the Wikipedia page, and yes, by looking at the cover, you've got Han Solo with like the black hair and the black jacket. So
that one was
The
terrible.
new Jedi Order.
Also, I think that might have been our first exposure to Vergier. Might have been in that novel.
Yeah, that
Okay.
one was terrible though.
It was
The new Jedi Order, Agents of Chaos.
I should have picked that one as my stinker.
New Jedi Order
that was really bad.
Was the Vong invasion.
actually Agents of
Okay.
Chaos 1: Heroes Trial.
Yeah, they're right. I didn't get a chance to finish.
We weren't going to give it to you.
And he wrote 2.
yeah,
he
it was a
did.
duology, and they were both
And
terrible.
he wrote Darth Maul.
Whoa, Saboteur. But he wrote 3.
The Unifying Force.
Yeah, he wrote 3 New Jedi Order books, and they were all pretty terrible, as I recall.
He did the Darth Plagueis book.
That one was okay. I like that one.
He wrote Revenge of the Sith Visual Dictionary.
Oh, he wrote Catalyst. I like that one. And the Millennium Falcon book wasn't bad.
Yeah, Catalyst was...
It was true Jimmy the Looch speed though.
Yeah.
Even though it jumped around in time, it was still slow.
It was a completely unnecessary book, but it wasn't.
Yeah, that is really true. That is really true. Wow. So there you go, listeners. There's our list of our hot list of favorites and total stinkers.
You want to jump into the legends?
Yeah,
That's where we
Well,
recommend.
that just happens to be where we fell. Everything except Tarkin's still canon, right?
Yep.
And, well, Lords of the Sith
Yeah,
is still
Lords of
canon.
Sith.
Oh yeah, there you go. So so not necessarily restricted to legends, but yeah, obviously that's still the meat and the potatoes of the media we consume because a lot more time has passed in that time. So yeah, check stuff out yourself. In the meantime, I think it's time to tie this one off, gentlemen.